Thanks for staying with us. The Federal High Court in Port Harcourt has issued an order restraining the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, from collecting value-added tax, VAT, and personal income tax, PIT, in Rivers State. The state government had sought 11 reliefs from the court. This includes a declaration that the power of the federal government to delegate the collection of tax can only be exercised by the state government or other authorities of the state. So joining us to discuss the legality and constitutionality of all of this is the managing consultant at PEDABO, Mr. Albert Folorunsho. Welcome to the show. Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, and you all can join the conversation by calling us on 081-270-53687, or you can call us on 091-390-76948, and we'd love to hear from you. So, this is not the first time that a state is going to contest the constitutionality of something that has been done forever. I think that it strengthens our legal institution for us to contest if we feel like this thing, there's controversies around it. It shouldn't really be. And I would like you to break down what this means. The legal. So one, explain for those just watching now.
Yeah.
What is the judgment the court gave, and what does this mean for both FIRS and the people of Rivers State?
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, the issue is around the value-added tax, which is a transaction tax, consumption tax, or production tax, or that everybody pays when you consume a service, a product, and so on. So, if you look at the Constitution, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just going to be stating it strictly based on my own view. The Constitution, strictly, looking at the concurrent legislative list and the exclusive list, mentions strictly income and profit tax, and of course stamp duty. Okay, that the National Assembly should have power to legislate on. Okay, and anything that is not on that list, it means that the state can have authority to legislate on it, and that is so. The Rivers State government went to court for three basic relief. That is one, whether the federal government or the Federal Republic of Nigeria can make sales tax or value-added tax law within the context of those exclusive and concurrent lists. Again, they wanted to know whether the National Assembly can, delegate the authority to collect VAT to any person other than the state. And again, whether the taxes, we have these taxes and levies approved list, decree number 21, which is now of 1998, which is now an act which specifically states the taxes that can be collected by state, local government, and federal government. And of course, VAT is not under the state.
Wow.
So whether that list is authentic, is constitutional, more or less. Okay. And it must be said that this is the first time, of course, like you mentioned, there are several times the issue around VAT has been taken to court by Lagos State, by the Aberiagba case in Ogun State, and Eko Hotel, Federal Revenue Service, and Lagos State. But all of those cases have not really, addressed the issue of the constitutionality. Okay, it has to do with if we are already collecting VAT in a federal government, can we also legislate as a state to collect the consumption tax? Some states call it entertainment tax. Some call it hotel and occupancy tax. Okay. And of course, the ruling in most of those cases is the fact that VAT has covered the field, which means there's no need bringing in a new provision, which means if you go to an hotel, do you pay VAT at the same time pay hotel and occupancy? And of course, which one has superior authority? And of course, anything that is legislated by the National Assembly should supersede what the state National Assembly will do. Okay, that has been the position of the rulings in most of those cases. Okay, so but Rivers State has taken this to the next level. Okay, to say that is it actually constitutional
for them to collect within the states?
Yes, to collect within the. For federal government to be collecting VAT that is, related to more or less consumption activity within the state. that has been the bone of contention. But of course, VAT is much more complex. If really we want to talk about which tax can be collected by the state, by the federal government, then the state should not be talking about VAT. Okay, maybe they want to look at the sales tax, the consumption tax, and there should be no overlapping anyway. Okay, because you will not be able, I mean, the taxpayer should not be made to pay excessive tax or multiple tax. Here you talked about road tax recently.
Yes.
Okay, so those are the issues that need to be addressed. It's not about having a constitutional power. Of course, we know that
if VAT is supposed to be for value of goods bought or sold within a region. So the states, for instance, now in some states up north, in Kano, for instance, Hisba destroyed alcohol products by already paid for by some distributors in the state, saying that it is illegal or unaccepted in Kano state. But when it is allowed in Port Harcourt, where the big guys drink a lot, and they make the VAT from it, it's now shared. So I'm just talking ethics now. Yeah. As when the FIRS collect, this is money now shared, even to Kano, who would destroy the same products. Does it not make sense now for the VAT to be collected per state and shared and controlled by the state?
Okay, so like I said, VAT is a much more complex. Like you said, when you sell, you charge VAT. And of course, what you sell, you must have bought it. And at the point of buying, you also pay VAT, which we call the input VAT. Okay, when you sell, you charge VAT, which is the output VAT. It is the net effect that you pay to the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Okay, and so how do we want to reconcile station where you buy in Lagos and you sell in Port Harcourt? How do you offset? So the mechanism is not there, and that is why in most jurisdictions you don't have a state running value-added tax. It's an international phenomenon which is not peculiar to Nigeria. But you talk about the, maybe what you said is the ethical part, which I called the moral part, where morality and ethics has nothing to do with law. Okay, and so, and of course, we talk about the federation.
Exactly.
Okay, not exactly. We talk about the federation. What is tax per se? Tax is something that is collected more or less from the rich and then shared amongst everybody, so that the infrastructure that is required for everyone, will be made available. So if you go to that route, saying that why is it moral? Well, that is a discussion for. That has to be looked at the National Assembly, or it's a constitutional issue. Okay, but the important thing is that for VAT to be applicable, like I said, it is something that, if you look at the distribution mechanism now, 15% goes to federal government, 35% goes to the local government, while 50% goes to the state. Okay, with this River State law, okay, even the local governments in River State are going to be getting lower, because from the law that they have just promulgated, 70% to the state and 30% to the local government. So you are taking 30% of only what comes from River State. Presently, the whole sum goes into the federation, and it is shared globally. And if you look at the details records in the previous year, I think about 2 trillion was raised from VAT, which was shared among all the states. Okay, for any state to follow up with River State now to attempt to promulgate the same law, they must have done their analysis to see that they will probably raise more. And there's several states that will get much lower than what they're sharing. Some states will become unviable, I mean, bankrupt, if they attempt to go ahead with what River State is doing now. The River State
took the decision following the High Court judgment. They've not gone to other courts of higher jurisdiction, and I think they acted prematurely.
Okay, so what we would do is we would get the answer, what your opinion is of that question when we come back from the break. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue this conversation on the VAT and the legality of questioning who should be collecting the VAT. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. We're still discussing the legality of the... actually, we cannot discuss the legality. We're discussing the court judgment of the High Court in Rivers State concerning FIRS and the VAT and what is collectible and what is not collectible, and what they have proposed. And Mariam had a question before we went on a break.
Okay, I think Nima had already asked it, which is, we know that FIRS is still going to appeal this. So in the meantime, but the governor has already gone ahead to sign it into law in the state. And for me, what would mean for all the states in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Like I said, it's not that FRS is planning to appeal. They have actually appealed, and they also asked for stay of execution. And we expect to hear more about that, I mean, in the coming days, as to whether that stay of execution has been granted. But in the meantime, based on that, taxpayers, have been thrown into a situation of confusion. But of course, I mean, from what I read in the paper this morning, the FRS has made their position known, which is the fact that continue to pay your VAT. Even the River State is not ready for the VAT, okay, because the provision says that you should register within 6 months of the law or of your commencement. Of course, the interpretation of that is that all companies operating in River State now should register immediately if you're already in existence. And if you're not yet in existence, if you immediately you come into existence, you have six months within which you should register. Okay, so all those procedures has to be, nobody has seen any form, through which registration is to be done. The VAT rate they have proposed is 7.5%, which is the same as the existing one. They just copied like the old national tax VAT law, and then just call it.
I think all they are interested in is the collection, to make sure that they collect it.
It's to create more cash flow for the state.
I think the most important thing for them is to make the statement that, see, we deserve to collect our own VAT directly. And of course, they need to look at the details, what VAT is, and compare that with what sales tax is. Okay, they need to sit down and look at the...
But what's the difference? What do you think they are missing based on your own experience as a
sales tax is a direct charge on specific transaction operating within the state, and it is fixed amount on the transaction. While VAT, is a consumption that devolves in successive stages. At the end of the day, it is the consumer that bears the liability of VAT, which means the manufacturer produce in the course of production. They incur some VAT, they call input VAT. When they sell to the distributor, they charge the distributor, okay, and the distributor eventually sell to the retailers, and then from retailers to the final consumer. So it evolves in successive stages, okay, and the manufacturer can be in Kano and then finally consumed in Lagos. How do you offset all of that without the proper mechanism and resources in place?
You understand that the ultimate problem, the ultimate problem is a cash flow problem. That's the ultimate problem, that the state governors have a responsibility to find how we can find a way to raise this revenue. What would you say based on your expert opinion, many states are missing? Where is that opportunity to raise funds that they are missing right now?
Well, I think in terms of revenue, it is not from VAT, okay, because I know about 2 trillion was raised. And if each state look at their model and see, most of them are taking heavy loans that they are paying back. And if this is to be implemented, a lot of them will not be able to meet their loan repayment, because some states will gain heavily, particularly Lagos State, and maybe Kano, Rivers, and probably Kaduna will get a little bit more than maybe what they are getting from the federation now. Okay, while the other states are definitely going to be owing huge sum of money because they will be in deficit, and then they will not be able to meet their demand. In terms of meeting their revenue potential, we know that a lot of individuals, particularly the informal sector, are not that compliant. The companies are already paying their corporate tax. The employees working in those companies are already paying their personal income tax. But the individuals, you know, you just mentioned that 50 private jets were parked somewhere.
Yes.
Okay, some of them are...
So where would that...
So I wonder how fun is broke when we have private jets that are flourishing.
Well, they may not be operational. Some of them are just parked, you know, and they find a way of managing it, because parking your private jets, even at the port,
could you help me clarify? Airport, because
you incur a lot of costs.
So let's do the math.
Please,
Someone
sorry,
did the math already.
Nima, could you just help me clarify this? Because for me, at first, when we read this, we thought this is a good thing for Rivers State, and then it will be a good thing for each and every other state in Nigeria. But the way you're explaining it is that it may not necessarily be like that in the long run. What states would, yes, you've mentioned a few states that would find this advantageous, and why would it not be so for the other states?
Okay, before you answer that, let me take Hassan. He's called back again from Lekki. Hassan, welcome to the show.
Please, about this issue of in the left to rest. I don't see any state government willing to. They have been collecting VAT from the federal government. They have been drawing their VAT money for federal government. You cannot come back now and go to court trying to claim it. It's not possible. And the way we are saying it in this country, we always let pitching our tent with state government. State government, in most of the state in Nigeria, they behave like emperors. They patronizing the money of the state. You don't expect any fair deal in the state. So please let them fall in line. Federal government continue to pay them. If you have an issue with Kano, sort it out with that. You cannot be claiming money while buying something in your own state. This is something that calls for decent discourse. They should discuss it at their own level, state government to state government, not to drag federal government into it.
Okay, thank you for your contribution.
Yeah.
Let me answer the question, please, sir.
Okay,
the
so
question she asked.
Yes, so from what he has just said is that the state are already benefiting from VAT, like we already know in the law. 50% goes to the state, while 25% go to the local government,
which is through the state.
Most time through the state.
Okay.
And then of course only 15% for the federal government.
Okay.
Like she's asked, if this provision, I mean this decision is to be upheld, maybe at the Supreme Court, what it means is that each state will now have a responsibility for collecting VAT in their own state on transactions carried out within the state.
Okay.
So, and that is why we have said that virtually 60% or more will be for Lagos State, because most of the transactions are carried out in Lagos State. Okay, and if you move down to other states, you look at where are the industries, where are the companies operating, where is the consumer, where is the population, okay, and in those are the things that drives you know, revenue, particularly when it comes to VAT, which is a consumption tax. Where are the transactions, where are the products and services being consumed? So by detailed analysis, you will see that all imports will be coming, which are currently being collected by the customs, okay, will still go to federal government.
Okay.
All transactions, all non-residents, okay, will be paid to the federal government. And all transactions in Abuja will also go to the federal government. And that will take almost up to 40% of, instead of the current 15% that is going to federal government.
So
it can move up,
federal government
it may move up by analysis up to 40%. And then you now come to where are the transactions being carried out, majorly in Lagos State.
Yeah.
And then which will probably take another 40 or 30%. And then we have 20% left for the other states.
Is that an unfair advantage or irregular advantage? Those are questions, but...
Well, it has to do with where the activity is being carried out.
I'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll discuss further about, more about the multiple taxations Nigerians are complaining about. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. We've been discussing the new court judgments from Rivers State concerning VAT and the structure and how it works for other states. And we were talking during the break, and you mentioned how the federal government should involve all states in having like a roundtable conversation about how this can best work. So what would you advise the federal government does? What's the best approach
what are the,
this?
First of all, just to add, what are the fears if this is implemented across board? How would that affect regular Nigerians across all states? And then why do they need to sit at
Okay,
table?
so thank you very much. From my earlier analysis, I've said that the bulk of the VAT revenue will go to federal government and Lagos State, and a few states, will probably have a minimum increase in what they are currently earning from VAT. And so if that is done, automatically the other states will be put under pressure, and then they will definitely have to come back, to the individuals in the state, to citizens. They will look for other, you are talking about multiplicity of taxes. We will now have multivarious taxes now, because the state have to meet their demands. Salaries have to be paid. A lot of states are struggling to pay their salaries. They will need to be more creative in terms of going back to
raising
revenue from every possible sources.
So there's a good side to this River State judgment that they got, because if this stands, it means that states that with more industries get more money, states with more manufacture. So other states can start to do or create the avenue or hubs for businesses to start. But then there's states whose strength is agriculture, and there's the exemption from food and all of that for VAT. So let's have...
No, so you mentioned it during the break. So apparently I felt like Mariam and I were discussing about some states that had major, that seemed disadvantaged, but they do have the food baskets. So they have produce. But then you now
what can they do? Can they have their products processed?
Those for export.
Create businesses, process products, because we have states like up north where they plant tomatoes and rather ship the tomatoes straight to Lagos raw. Why not that have a process, of making it and creating industries?
Maybe to start with, we should understand that there are exemptions from VAT. Basic food items, particularly those raw agricultural produce, are exempt from VAT. Okay, and so states that are fully agricultural oriented, even the tractors that they use, they hire in their agricultural businesses, are also exempt from VAT. Just to encourage agriculture, we need food. Okay, and so the bulk of those are exempted from VAT. Of course, how do you raise funds to be able to set up, the processing?
As Lagos States got their loans directly that they are owing so much to create this avenue for businesses that they are entitled to.
Yes.
Those states too can approach, and create the businesses.
Before anybody gives you loan, you have to have a projection.
Yes.
Where will the repayment come from?
So they should start
Number
looking
one, the
into
VAT will disappear for some states. Okay,
Yes.
and so that already reduces their ability to raise loan, whether it is the multinational loan and all that. Okay, so that will be taken out. And so the states are still disabled to some extent because they will not be able to set up those industries. We have, of recent, we have seen rice processing factory coming up, and other, even the produce from rice is exempt from VAT. So
wow.
You
but we understand that part. Before we run off, I wanted you to just touch on, we've taken the story when the Minister for Works mentioned that there would be tolls reintroduced, and there is the question of multiple taxation, and Nigerians that are already feeling like they are feeling the weight of the exchange rate and the inflation and all the economical hardship generally. Do you believe that there's any way to make toll system come back and make sense, or how do we address this?
Okay, so multiple taxation, sometimes there are things we call tax that are really not tax. When you pay for services, they are not tax. If you look at the Lekki toll and all that, of course, we will see that the road has been relatively been decent over the years, and it's because of the toll, even though you argue that we already paid for that by paying our taxes heavily. But of course, we know that if you go to some estates, they take care of themselves and you enjoy the services you get. So if it's going to be privatized, if the services are going to be properly managed to some extent, the way we have seen the Lekki bridge, toll being properly managed, for me, and if we're going to get some relief, if you apply those roads, relief as in some reduction in your taxes because you have already paid upfront. If we can have that, there's no reason why we will not have those tolls, because we know, if we are sure That's the bottom line. If we are sure that it will be properly managed.
Wow.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if we are sure
That's the
that
end.
the money will be properly managed,
For the
and
roads.
that trust issue is still lacking, but we're hoping for the best. Nigerians, we deserve better, and we need to continue to watch, listen, hold our government accountable, do what we can, because our taxes definitely contribute towards the income that goes to the states. And so whether you are directly paying or not, you are actually funding the government. So you have a right to hold the government accountable for how they spend the monies that is within their custody. So ask questions and vote when the time is right. Thanks for joining us on the show. It's a wonderful week ahead, and we'll say bye. See you all tomorrow. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.